You're listening to the Money Monopolizers podcast, helping you take control of your financial destiny. It's about time that we invest more in our financial literacy and work towards building generational wealth. If you think you're ready to do the same, then you've come to the right place. Alex, Marlon, y'all ready? Let's get this bread.
What's good, everybody? It's Alex Kamunyu here, and we are back with episode 51 of the Money Monopolizers podcast. And I'm here with my co-host, Marlon Walls. Marlon, how you doing today, bro?
I'm doing very well, man. Like I'll be thinking about it more and more. Every day that goes by when I'm at work, and I'm like, man, that prison sentence is over. Like it's just like I almost got PTSD thinking about like how I felt back then. I feel just like so relieved. Like I'm diving a lot more into business recently, and I'm just pretty much doing my own thing, like looking at different business ventures and trying to get them started up. Definitely looking at the rental cars right now. I think so. I've already looked a lot more into the mobile homes, rental cars, and I got more on the horizon. But like I said, I got a lot more time now. Oh yeah, first paycheck just dropped yesterday too, so I got paid twice the amount for half the work. So I'm feeling really good, bro. Like it's just a way different life for me right now. I'm just enjoying every moment of it because I know I see how much potential I have to start scaling since I have a lot more time, freedom, and then more finances to allocate toward like scaling. So I'm excited, bro. How about you?
That's good. It's welcome to the it's a new type of prison, but you know the rules.
It's a big step from where I just came from. So I'm seeing it like in that aspect because I know where I'm trying to get to is gonna be even better. But I'm at a middle ground now where I'm like I can really exponentiate my process to get there.
Yeah, like slavery to indentured servitude.
Yes, sir. We here.
Yeah, facts. That's good though. But yeah, man, I'm doing good too. We just listed the house in Houston, in San Antonio, and listed it for $169.9 and got an offer above asking. So within a week. So definitely happy about that. It's a bread and butter home run flip. So super excited that one's wrapping up. Hopefully we'll be closing on that soon, and then getting this next one finished out and then closed on too. Get a couple more this year, hopefully, and get these apartment complexes hopefully within the next year, man. I'm super excited about that to continue growing that. Other than that, man, I've been working, and just hustling, man. Business has been really good. I just started up one that's not too long ago. Shout out to the Heart Sogs with the with their cleaning business class. I just got into that, and it's been good. I had 5 bookings already, 5 clients. Gonna hit $1,000 in the first week here soon, so I'm super excited about that, man. It's good, man. Business is booming. The trucking is still. I'm still trying to find a driver right now, but drivers are so scarce right now. It's because a lot of big companies are hiring again. So the fact that they're now like within the competition pool, like when I got my first driver in March, I got him in like a week. It was so easy. And then now, that guy, he didn't work out, of course, and I'm trying to find a new one. And these dudes are very rough around the edges, to put it nicely. So that's a whole headache, but it's part of the game. And I know, once you get that driver, man, that truck is bringing you $20K a month, and it's like, man, I remember now why I stuck through trying to find that driver.
Right.
But that's going good. Got the rental car, of course. The guy just extended his rental.
Again.
So. Yeah. So, hopefully I just texted him. He said, yeah, I'm planning. I said, hey, you bringing the car back soon? He's like, oh, no, man, I plan to have this for a long time. It's like,
I like those type of people right there. That's my boy.
Yeah, man. Say no more. I promise you won't hear from me. As long as I see that extension and that deposit every day, shoot, I'm good money. So that's going good. Got, the rental properties are still going good. And what else? Of course, options trading, that's still going. And had a couple wins this week. It was a slow little week, but or past couple weeks it's been kind of rough, but we got back in that, and that's going good. And then let me see what else.
Just get you a checklist next time, bro. Just start going down the list.
Yeah, man, that's enough about us.
Right.
We did have a guest today. I really resonated with this guy because he had a very similar story to us in terms of kind of like what he's doing, and I really like see him kind of as like me in the future a little bit, just because he's like, you know, achieved financial freedom by age 29, scaled to 215 doors, I think he said. I mean, he's 35 years old. Financial freedom, of course. So it's a really good story, and he, you know, humble beginnings. Of course, we don't bring anybody on here that's like, yeah, man, my dad gave me a loan of $1 million, and you know, I was able to get started.
History.
Nah, we not out here, you know, with that. But it was good though. What did you think of it?
I liked it a lot, honestly. I think it was better than we both expected it to be, honestly. And one thing I really liked, especially in the beginning, is how he was able to leverage his 9 to 5 in order to both finance his business, like starting up real estate, and also utilizing the different aspects of his 9 to 5, like the actual job description, and applying that to how he ran his business. So he'll talk a lot more about that in the episode, and I'll leave that to him to speak on. But I see that happen quite often. I'm trying to do the same thing for myself, because I think back to when we had Brian Robinson on. He was a CPA, but back for his 9 to 5, but he took all of the analysis tools, like all of this spreadsheet building, and he applied that to be able to make another stream of income for himself. And that's what we see Ed do during this episode as well. Like he utilized his job description during his 9 to 5 in order to really operate in his business. And I think that's one thing that people can really need to be looking for with their own 9 to 5s. Instead of hating Mondays and hating going to work, find a reason why you can find a reason to be excited about going there, knowing that you can use it to leverage. You can leverage your 9 to 5 in order to do something outside of it as well, like something to build your business up. So I think that's one thing that I really enjoyed about this episode, and hopefully people get a lot of value out of it.
Mm-hmm. Fact. For sure. So let's get right into it.
Yep.
Hey Ed, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How's it going, man?
Oh, we doing good. Happy to have you on the show, man. So usually the way we kind of do this is we, you know, got some questions, we lay them out, and we just really want to get into your story and start talking about, you know, everything that you kind of like. I know you preach a lot of the similar things that we preach, so it should really be, you know, a really great convo in terms of like providing different perspectives and those kind of things. So starting off though, I do, you know, want to hear. We ask every guest the same thing. What was your like upbringing financially, and like, you know, that mentality around money as you were growing up?
Yeah, well, I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs, so I think it was in my blood to kind of pave my own path and do things my own way. But I would say that we were somewhat entrepreneurs trying to figure it out, right? So money wasn't abundant, but I never really felt like I didn't have anything I needed, but we were always constantly in that grind of working hard. And we didn't really have the money conversations, but because I had enough money to like get Jordans and things like that, I felt like, hey, I'm doing my thing, right? But as I got older, you know, I realized that there were a few conversations that maybe we weren't having that kind of led me down the path of looking for financial freedom.
Okay. So just from there, then I'm just already thinking. You said y'all were like a family of entrepreneurs, but y'all weren't having like money conversations. So was it more so like we're just a family that want to provide by our own means, and it's more like a self-employed type of mindset, or is it more so we're building businesses and we're passing down generational wealth and it's like already established? Like what kind of what kind of dynamic are y'all seeing in the family early on?
Gotcha. So just to run down a few of the things, like my grandpa owned a hardware store. My parents own a pet supply store. There's appliance shops, liquor stores, all these different things in the family. But for every one of those businesses, with me being the oldest child and grandchild, like they rotated me through all of those as free labor, right? Mm-hmm. And so I learned the hard work, but I never really learned the back end. We never talked about, you know, how much was coming in and how much was going out. We never talked about the taxes, you know, the insurance, the liabilities, any of that stuff. And I think it was primarily because, you know, we were all just so busy making sure that the work got done.
Yeah. So Okay, because I know for you, you kind of had like as far as like 9 to 5, and that whole life goes before financial freedom is kind of similar to how we kind of started in terms of like obviously you well, I don't know, I read on your page that you were engineer prior to doing this. So whenever you were growing up, was it kind of like it was expected of you to go to school, get a degree, and then graduate, and then kind of get into the 9 to 5, or did they encourage you to like be kind of like them as far as like entrepreneurship, or well, how did you what led you to actually becoming like a engineer?
Gotcha. Yeah, no, going to college was not something that was required by my family, man. It was totally optional. And in fact, I probably would not have gone to college if it wasn't a requirement for one of my classes. I had to fill out applications. So I was like, okay, well, what colleges do I want to go to? And I had two uncles in college. One was at Sam Houston, one was at PV. So that's the only two schools I applied to. And I did it purely for the grade. Once I got the grade and I got accepted, then I was like, oh, now there are decisions to be made. I would say that my parents wanted me to go to college, but it wasn't a requirement. And then what actually made me, go ahead and jump into school was the fact that I had been doing so much manual labor and blue collar work growing up as a kid. I was just like, man, my dream job was just like a desk job. And at the time, I didn't even know enough to know what positions, right? So I was just like, if I can answer the phones and be in the AC and just chilling at a desk, I'm straight. But later on, I figured out that was like an assistant's role, and I was like, maybe I want to do something a little different.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically you went from in a family of entrepreneurs starting out, and then you, after doing so much, I guess you're really just like an employee growing up all your life, but you're working for your family, which was like still had an entrepreneurial mindset to them, or like just working for your family in general. And so that actually kind of discouraged you, since you weren't seeing the back end and seeing how they actually operate the business. You reverted, like most stories we hear is like we start off with just working, and then we were inspired later on to go to entrepreneurs. You was within the entrepreneurs, then you said, I just want me a desk job. I want the normal 9 to 5, just something that's a little bit more chill. So what kind of job did you ultimately end up with because you started following that route?
Yeah. So I ended up I graduated from Prairie View with an engineering degree. Mm-hmm. And so I first started out as a field engineer at Zachary Construction, which is out in San Antonio.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when I got out of school, that was the first thing I did, was shipped out to San Antonio. And from there, I kind of moved out of being a field engineer and into more of the corporate role, where I was in project management, and moved back to Houston and did that for like 7 years.
Oh, okay. Got you. So okay, before we get into the story, how old are you?
I'm 35.
35. Okay, got you. Okay. Well, I thought you was younger than that. You look younger than that, but that's good though. So then, I know you like big on real estate and financial freedom and those kind of things like we talked about. What kind of like, at what point in your along this journey of like, after you became obviously an engineer, worked there for a few years, what made you realize, like, what was that Eureka moment that was like, all right, I can't do this. This ain't it.
Absolutely. So when I first got out of school, I had that job at Zachary, which, they sent me out to a plant. And I was like, man, every day I had on the Timberland boots, I had jeans, polo shirt, and I'm walking out of the plant with, a half a pound of mud on the bottom of my boots. And I'm tracking all that into the car. I can't wear my shoes into the house. And, it was just an hour commute one way. I'm there at 6 o'clock in the morning for the safety meetings and all that kind of stuff. And I was just like, man, do I really go to school, have to wear a hard hat and like grind hard every day? And so that's what made me transition, because I was doing 6 days a week, 11 hours a day, but I was only getting paid for 40.
Oh, boy, that's some slave labor right there.
Yeah, man.
Working 26 extra hours with no pay.
Absolutely. And so that's what kind of made me say, all right, I'm gonna transition out of engineering into project management, go back to Houston, have a lighter commute. I moved over to Memorial. I was in the city center area. I was like, man, life is good. from a financial standpoint and from a time aspect, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when I got there, I'm in the corporate office, I'm in management, but I'm also seeing that, man, I'm only working 40 hours a week, but I still don't have that freedom and flexibility that I was used to as an entrepreneur, right? So I would say probably the second week of being at that job, it all clicked to me that nobody is going to provide the ideal living situation for you. You're going to have to create it yourself. And then that's what led me into real estate.
Okay, so I'm trying to put everything together. I know you said you were doing project management for 7 years. You said 2 weeks into it, though, you had started thinking about the entrepreneurship aspect of it. So I'm guessing there may have been some overlap between the time that you were able to retire and then when you first started getting into real estate. So first of all, I want to ask, how'd you choose real estate? Because you were talking about you have different family businesses that were being ran. So that was entrepreneurship, but you ultimately landed with real estate. So kind of explain how you got to real estate and then also how that transition period was between when you first discovered it to the time you were able to retire.
Okay. So with real estate, I grew up as a kid. All of my grandparents took money from their businesses and invested in real estate. Right. And so as a kid, I was in real estate, but I hated it. And the reason I didn't like it was because my dad would bring me with him. He was their maintenance man at all of their properties. And he would bring me along to do all the work. And so that was all I knew about real estate. So I was like, man, real estate ain't for me, man. But as I got older and started reading books like Your Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Your Cash Flow Quadrants, all of that, I was like, wow, I could do this real estate a different way.
Yeah.
And then I started thinking, and I was like, wait a second, that's ultimately what my grandparents had done. They just hired my dad as the property manager. So then I just started to kind of reverse engineer, and then I saw how when my grandparents sold some properties, I was like, dang, you got $1 million and you didn't do nothing? Okay. So that for me was kind of the clicking moment. Every time I would go back in my head, knowing that my grandparents were kind of that rock of the family that was always able to hold everybody down, I was like, okay, let me take the things that I like about their situation and kind of engineer my path forward.
See, I think that's really interesting because a lot of people think about, because when you first hear about real estate, right? Most people, once they get into this whole entrepreneurship thing, your mind is still in the consumption mindset as a consumer, right? So when you first hear about real estate, a lot of people tend to think of just the consumption aspect of it, and in this case how it's going to consume your time and those kind of things, right? So things a lot of people say is like, oh, I don't want to fix clogged toilets at 3 a.m. Oh, I don't want to deal with these headaches and all these things. But the thing about it is that there's a difference depending on how you run your real estate business, on it being a business versus it just being like there's like a difference between like a landlord and like a business owner. Yeah. It's a different aspect even as a real estate business owner, because as a real estate business owner, you don't deal with those things. Like, they happen, but you delegate those aspects of the business so that you don't have to deal with them. And that's just a different perspective. And I think a lot of that comes from like cash flow quadrant, like you mentioned, like, because it teaches you how to think of something in terms of a business owner. Because that book is not necessarily a book on how to generate money. It's a book on how to think as on a different, level. Absolutely. And so I think that's kind of, you in your story, particularly, like, you seeing your dad, like you saw it as a kid in the consumption kind of mindset, but like as you grow older and you enlighten yourself and get more information, you see it like, oh my God, this is like amazing if you do it the correct way. And so that's like, I think something that people got to really think of if you want to get into real estate. It's like, start thinking into that, like that business owner mindset and not that consumer or that, quote unquote employee mindset. But I do, before we because I want to talk about kind of like your first deal and that kind of stuff. What does your real estate portfolio look like today as it is? Like, how many doors do you have and how does that look?
Yeah. So right now I started out with a duplex, and now I'm at 215 doors. I'm in 3 different states. I'm in Texas, Florida, and Michigan. And like you were saying, I did it from a business mindset, right? So my mentality and the mentality that I teach to all my coaching clients is that, look, you want to be the CEO of a real estate business, not a landlord, not just a property owner. And so a lot of that concept came from the cash flow quadrants, but I'm able to run all 215 doors totally passively, right? So I focus on building out the team, building out the system, putting strategies in place, and then I just sit back and collect my check.
You're not fixing toilets, right?
Nah, in fact, I've never been to the toilet.
That's how it should be.
That's since childhood.
Yeah.
So
That's how it should be.
Okay, so I see there's like kind of a couple things that that allowed you to be able to operate your business the way you did. One, I'm seeing that you were a program manager for engineers, right? Like for those 7 years. I'm assuming project manager. My bad, not program, but project manager. Did you? So that's like you're managing people at that point, right?
Absolutely.
So do you think that had any type of translation between that you being able to utilize the skills that you learned at your job to being able to apply that to just being able to run a profitable business, like just with the real estate in general?
Absolutely. So when I take a look at my engineering background, right, I think that was able to help me visualize the world that I wanted to see. Mm-hmm. So as an engineer, we're used to building things. If what we're looking for doesn't exist, we're going to create it. And so that was my approach to real estate. I was like, all right, I saw how my grandparents got money in real estate. Let me take the things I don't want and throw those out. Let me add more of the stuff that I do. And so that helped me like narrow my focus. And that's part of the reason why I was able to move through so fast, because I had a strategy, I had a process, and I focused on it. And then as a project manager and managing people and understanding, man hours and, efficiency rates and productivity and all of this type of stuff, and, how to build out a team and how to, keep everybody encouraged and motivated, that 100%, helped me in being able to build out a team so I don't have to do the work.
You pretty said. No, he said my 2 points for me because I was going to target like your upbringing, because you saw the real estate aspects that you liked and didn't like, so you're able to pull from the ones that you approved of, and also disregard anything that you didn't like. And then on top of that, you also knew how to manage people, because as a program or project manager, you have to deal with people's emotions. You have to deal with man hours, like you said, all this other exterior factors other than just running the business. So by gaining those emotional intelligence skills on top of already having, you said what?
That's a big one, emotional intelligence.
Yeah. So, but by having the prior knowledge of how real estate works, and then also gaining some type of managerial experience, you were able to really take both of those and encompass those into being able to run a profitable business that's grown to 215 doors today.
And I want to comment on that whole kind of dynamic too, because I know a lot of people will hear that and be like, oh, well, I mean, he was a project manager. He already had experience. He could do that. I mean, yeah, of course he can get 215 doors. A lot of people are going to hear it and try to find a way to why they can't do that. But I want people to realize the power of leveraging your 9 to 5, right? Because there's so many different ways that you can kind of leverage that 9 to 5 to, kickstart or, whatever, get into what you really want to get into, right? Because you can, number one, of course, you can, leverage it financially, right? So you have the ability to use that income, your 9 to 5, I always say is that's your first investor. That's the person that's going to be investing in you first. Like that, your paycheck, part of that got to be going toward your investments. Every paycheck that you get in, so it's going to fund your business. And then of course you have like the networking and the resource aspect of the 9 to 5, right? Because every job kind of has something that you can benefit from in some way. Literally every job, even the freaking cook at Burger King, there's something you can take from that job and apply to another aspect of business or your life. You just have to be willing to look for that and be open to that mentality, right? And then also, I think a third point too with that part of leveraging is the fact of if you can, this is kind of a plus, but if you can kind of find that synergy between your day job and your business, like you were able to, right? So you were able to find the synergy between being a project manager and being a business owner in terms of how they relate to you managing people, and now you're managing, other aspects of your business in terms of you're managing property managers, you're managing contractors, you're managing all these other aspects. And that is what we preach big to people. Because I know for me, like I had kind of mentioned to you, as a civil engineer, I work specifically in single family master plan community land development. So that obviously is tied directly to real estate in terms of like there's a lot of similarities in terms of the connections and the networks. So that's a great way to like, for me to leverage it in terms of finding that synergy between my day job and my business. So I just say that to say, people, you got to think of it in that aspect. If you want to one day get out of your 9 to 5, think about what job you're in right now and what you can pull out of there and, strengthen those skills in order to get to that next level that you're trying to get to.
Absolutely. If I could just piggyback off of, kind of that intro where you said a lot of people say, oh, he got to 215 doors because of XYZ, and then I won't be able to get there because of XYZ, right?
Yeah.
My goal when I started out wasn't to get to 215 doors, right? My goal was just to get to 16 doors. And the way I came up with that was I was sitting in my apartment by myself, one deep, and I started looking at the numbers on a duplex. And I was like, man, if I run this thing efficiently, I can make $1,000 profit off of it per month. So then my goal became like, all right, well, how am I going to replace my expenses? Not my salary, because a lot of people say, oh, how am I going to replace my salary?
Yeah.
You don't have to replace the whole check. You just need to replace whatever you need in order to enjoy your life, right? Mm-hmm. So when I sat down and looked at that, I was like, hey, for $4,000 a month, I mean, I'm fresh out of college, so $4,000 a month is still good money. My apartment will be paid for. I don't have a car note. I didn't have debt. I paid all that stuff off. So I was like, $4,000 a month is good. And so in my head, I was like, all right, if I can get 4 duplexes, that'll take care of me. And then, my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, I was like, well, she could live off of that $4K too. And so that's why I was like, all right, I want to get the 4 duplexes. But then I started the future, and I'm like, all right, so let's say when I have a kid, I want to send my kid to private school. I want to be able to pay for a car, or pay for their wedding, or whatever. All the things that we wish we had growing up. So I was like, all right, let me get 1 additional duplex for every member of the family. So it'll be me, my wife, and the 2 kids. So let me get 4 more, and that's how I got my way to 8 duplexes of 16 doors. Because I'm like, everybody will have $4,000 a month. I mean, everybody will have $1,000 a month that they can trick off, and then we got the $4,000 to hold down the family. And that was the whole strategy from the beginning.
So then what does that first one look like in terms of like actually getting into the deal? How long ago was that first one actually?
So the first one was in 2012.
Okay.
Yeah. And so
completely different market.
Yeah, but we probably headed back to the same type of environment.
Yeah. So what did it look like in terms of like how did you find it, and like that first deal, funding it and all of that?
Gotcha. So the first deal actually took the longest to come across, right? Because you're going through that whole timidness, you're nervous, you don't know if it's gonna work. I worked with a realtor to find the deal, and we had been working together. I don't know, it seemed like a year now, but I'm sure if I talked to her, she might say it was only like 2 or 3 months, but it just seemed like forever for me. But ultimately, we found a duplex that had been foreclosed on, and so we walked our way through that process of purchasing it. I purchased it for $120K. It was worth at least $180 at the time, so I bought it with $60,000 equity immediately. Right, that's one thing that I always coach my clients on. I'm like, look, Robert Kiyosaki and I both believe that you make your money at the purchase, and then I'm like, if it appreciates over time, that's my bonus, right? So I still kept that kind of a employee mentality from that standpoint of I want immediate money right now, and I want to get some money on the back end. So I purchased that with $60K of equity in it, and then at the beginning I was kind of doing some of that rehabbing myself because I didn't have the team yet, right? So I focused on building out my team, getting the contractors and things in place, and then use the profits from that to buy more real estate. I probably bought the next property like I bought that one in February, the next one in September.
Oh wow! Did you fund that cash or?
I was about to ask something like that too.
No, so the first property was a duplex, and I did an FHA on that one, and then the second one I did a conventional.
So basically, you house hacked the first one, then. So house hack, yeah, you lived in one unit, rent out the other one.
Absolutely, and that was kind of cool too because I didn't have the team, I was over there like painting, and it just made it a whole lot easier rather than. I was coming out of an apartment. It just made everything so much smoother. And one thing that I always told myself throughout that process was a lot of times I hear people say, "Oh, well, I wouldn't want to live in the same building as my tenants or this and that." And I'm like, "Look, man, it's a short time for a lifetime."
Oh, that's good right there. Like
man. That. And right? I want people to really like understand like the dynamic of this too, because this was 8 years ago, and that one property literally set you up to be where you are today. Like you're sitting with 215 doors. How many people can even imagine having 200 doors? How many people can even imagine having two houses and you got 215 doors? And it literally started with things that we preach all the time. I mean, how many times do we say house hacking? Like you house hack to get started. Like that's what we say. Like that's how you should get started. Because it leads to things like it's not a coincidence that you house hack and then all of us you got 215 doors 8 years later. You're on that path. The path starts from that and it, treads to that. So, I and it's really like it's a straightforward linear path, really. Like obviously there's going to be ups and downs, but it's really that straightforward. Yep. So I do want to kind of talk about how you were able to like scale to that 215 doors. Cause even, 215 doors, that's nothing to like, if those are duplexes, you're talking over 100 properties. But can you kind of like get into how you were able and like when cause obviously you had the 16 in mind and how did you scale so quickly?
How to go from how you go from a goal of 16 to end at 215? That doesn't just happen overnight.
Absolutely. So from that very first deal, like I said, I bought it with instant equity. I made sure it had plenty of positive cash flow. And then I jumped into the second one, doing the exact same thing, making sure that it has to meet all that same criteria on every deal or I'm not doing it, right? And so I had that. Then I had the money coming in from my 9 to 5. One thing that my wife and I always did, because she was an engineer as well, right? So we always lived off one person's income.
Very smart.
It's very smart.
Right? So I was like receiving checks that they would just go in the bank account and looking for another property.
Beautiful here.
Right. And so that was kind of our process for a couple of years. What was it, maybe 4 or 5 years? And then what we saw is like, man, this is kind of it can be a bit much if you keep all of your properties are at separate locations, right? And so then we started focusing on, well, how can we consolidate? And that's when we jumped into the apartment game. Mm-hmm. And now a lot of that 215 is apartments now.
Okay. So at what point did you start like not really outsourcing, but what point did the business start to grow? Because you say you were doing a lot of stuff with your wife up front. I'm guessing that may have been for like those first 16 units, or yes, first 16 doors. You may have been somewhere around there, like is you and your wife. But at some point, you had a team around you. So how did you get to that point?
So I had a team from day one.
Okay.
In the beginning, in that very first duplex, there were some things that I had to do myself, like the initial rehab and cleaning up and stuff, because I didn't know contractors, right? I hadn't put together a team of contractors, but from day one, I had management, right? Mm-hmm. And what I found out throughout that process is that in order to scale, it's going to be, solely based off of the backs and the shoulders of your staff, the people that you work with, the team, right? And so I kind of moved slower than I wanted to in the beginning, because I was trying to build out that team, and you're constantly like replacing people who come in and make all these promises, but they don't quite work out. So from the very beginning, we always had a team. We always had a team. We were just working on continuing to build and stretch that team, replacing it with more qualified people and stuff like that.
Yeah. So then, as far as, because I know, like, that's very similar to kind of what I want to do in terms of my wealth building strategy. And you take equity from single family houses and convert it to equity in commercial apartment complexes, right? Because with apartment complexes, obviously you have the economy of scale, right? So that's pretty much the fact that things become more cost efficient once they're consolidated under, in this case of real estate, one roof. Obviously you have partition walls between every unit, so it's shared walls, so it's less maintenance and those kind of things that go along with it. So it's a lot easier to manage, right, from that perspective. Absolutely. Of property management. So how did you kind of what was your strategy in order of converting that equity? Because I don't know, did you just sell them, or did you 1031 exchange, or what how did that look in terms of and at what point did you say, okay, I have too many single families, it's time to get to the apartment game? Residential. It's too many residential properties, it's time to get to the apartment game.
Gotcha. So for me, the whole thing was finding the right team, right? And so when I felt like I had reached the limits of my team in residential, that's when we started looking. And I think that linchpin for me and my wife was going to Detroit. So we went to Detroit. That's where she's from. We were working on having our house built. And so while they were building our house, we're like, hey, I got an opportunity to go to where my wife is from, spend some time there, enjoy the lifestyle, and see what her childhood was like. And so for me, it was a really good opportunity to be able to go and do that. But while I was there, I hired a coach, right? And so that coach is really what took me to the next level, because I was still kind of playing around with just a couple of properties. Like, man, all right, this is not growing and scaling like I wanted to. Even though I'm sitting on bags of money, I'm not seeing that growth. And so in order to unlock that next level, I was like, all right, there's this guy in Detroit who's done $2 billion worth of real estate transactions. So I was like, okay, there's definitely something that I can learn from this guy. So I hired him to teach me and my wife kind of what did that next level look like. And throughout that 90-day process of shadowing him, he started showing us apartments. Right. His thing was what is your overall goal? What do you want to be? And I was like, well, I want to get into apartments, maybe when I'm 50. And so he was like, 50? Why 50? And I was like, because, it's going to take time to get there. I can't just, jump into apartments. And he was like, man, I'm looking at your balance sheet. I'm hearing you as an engineer, as a project manager. I'm like, understanding what you're capable of, and I'm telling you, you can do it. So I'm still not believing him. Nah, I can't do that, man. And ultimately, he kept pulling me into the meetings, and he's like, you can do this. Built up my confidence, kind of showed me some deals, and then he put us in a car, put me and my wife in the car, and he was like, look, we're gonna go for a ride. I got something I want to show you. And so he took us down one street. And as we were riding down the street, he was like, I bought that one, I bought that one, I bought that one, and I bought that one, just all the way down the street. He's like, I bought a total of 4,400 units in 1 year. And I was like, damn.
Okay, so this is largely...
Wait, he wasn't done.
You have more? I missed it.
So
keep going.
So it was through that experience of him showing me, right? And me having been in the room with him, and him introducing me to city council members and politicians and all of these different people, that I was able to see what those meetings looked like, what the conversations sounded like, what talking to the lender looked like. All of these different things I'm picking up on. And he took us to the building, and we were there, and he was like, you guys can buy this one right here. And I'm like, okay. And so we started going through the numbers and looking at it. I'm like, wow, we really could. Ultimately, we didn't buy that building because when we stopped and thought about Detroit and kind of how much more it needs to grow, I said, look, I don't have a team that I can depend on here. So instead of purchasing here, where I would constantly be coming back, taken away from my time and location and financial freedom. Like, I'll have money, but I won't be happy. So instead, we left Detroit, came back, and applied all of that in Texas and Florida.
Got you.
Now go back to
Now you can go.
Yeah, right. This is largely talking about surrounding yourself with the right people. And so the people that you surround yourself with is going to ultimately be you're going to be the ultimate average of the people that you're surrounded by. And so what's going on here is that you have a certain, so I'm going to try to use an analogy here with talking about context and content. So just imagine having a cup. And just saying you have a cup full of water. You only can put in as much water as the cup will hold. But now, if you would be willing to expand, to grow the size of the cup, which is your total, like your mindset and like how you think, and just say that I'm willing to expound beyond this cup and say I'm going to go now get a bucket. And so now you can fill more water into that bucket versus what you could have poured into the cup. So you can fill a gallon maybe into that bucket. And that's what you're seeing here with this with the coach that you had. He took you and said, hey, you can do more. And so by you hearing that you can do more, now you've expanded to the bucket size of thinking. Now we can pour in more water. We can fill in more knowledge into that bucket versus what we could fill into the cup. And that's what you were seeing. Well, and that's ultimately what allowed you to be able to start scaling, because now you told yourself that you could do it. That's you expanded your context. Yeah. Now he can give you new content and you'll be receptive to it. Most people don't expand their context, so now they will inevitably just reject any new information like, oh no, I can't do that. They're just pretty much shutting it out. So by you saying, so if you say I can't, you pretty much are saying I'm not going to grow into that bucket size to obtain more content. And because you have the content now, it can be applied anywhere. It doesn't have to be applied to that one property in Detroit. The content is forever. Once you have it, you can apply it wherever you want to apply it to. And that's where we really preach more than anything else, is having the mindset and then understanding that knowledge is your ultimate power. Because once you have the knowledge, nobody can take that away from you, and you can use it whenever and wherever you think is applicable. And I think that's just big kudos to you for that.
Hey, that bucket analogy is huge, man.
Yeah. And one thing I want to comment on with that as well is the fact that whole mentality of, like, you know, what Marlon was talking about, the water in the bucket and all that, it applies in every aspect, in every stage of life, right? Because even once you first started, you even saw it was the same thing, right? Because now, I mean, theoretically, let's say you're at the bucket right now, right? But you started at that cup first before you got into real estate. Because now let's just say you were with a spoon, and then before, you know, you get to that cup, and now, you know, you're getting into real estate. Now you're just like, oh, okay, 16 doors, right? Yeah. And then like the bucket becomes whatever, 500 doors.
I'm looking for a pool now.
Exactly. Right. The next level is that swimming pool, right? It can always expand, right? We could talk about the ocean.
Right. That's the ocean eventually.
Yeah. And it's always another level. And the thing is, by the way, this is like one thing that I know a lot of, you know, commercial real estate investors and a lot of, you know, big time real estate syndicators and all of them say it takes the same amount of energy to do, you know, that $100,000 deal that it does to do the $10 million deal. It's just different phone calls, it's different paperwork, it's different things that go on.
But zeros at the end.
Yeah, it's that same energy.
That was the exact, you know, being out there in those meetings in Detroit. You know, there was hedge fund guys, and there was these all of these big wealthy families, and that was their one thing, man. They would just be like, look, don't call me for anything under 10 million. I gotta put in the same amount of time, same amount of work, right?
Exactly.
And that opened my mentality. And so, like, for me now, I focus, since I have the financial location and time freedom, I'm able to focus on my passions in life, right?
Yeah.
So my whole thing is being able to uplift the community, being able to help people make that same transition from the hood to wherever they want to be, like I did. And so I coach people on exactly how to use real estate to do that. But part of my mentality in doing it is, you know, if I have a bucket now and I want to go to that ocean, I'm going to need a team of people around, right? So if I can reach out to the Marlins and the Alexes of the world and say, hey, look, I see you brothers have a lot of potential and also a burning desire to understand and learn the information. If I got this apartment complex here and you got this one next door, and Marlon has the one across the street. Well, now we can really change some communities.
Yeah.
Now we can let our voice be heard, and we're not, begging or voting, but we're actually stepping to the table and saying, hey, this is what's gonna happen.
I love that. It's like that group economics concept, right? Because we the people have way much more power than we believe. Like literally we can change communities, we can change environments, we can change generations just literally amongst ourselves. We don't need anyone's help. But we as a community don't kind of see that, which is unfortunate. But, the things that you're putting out, the content that we put out, this whole community of like financial freedom, I think it's really a big movement. And a lot of people just Instagram alone is going to change generations. Like literally, it's going to change generations of people's, lineage. And it's crazy. I love to see it. But one thing I want to kind of get into, too, as far as like that transition you made. So of your like doors right now, how many of them are still of those single or residentials versus commercial units now? And whenever you did get into the commercial, did you just 1031 those properties, or did you just sell them to get that equity, or how did you kind of like financially make that transition?
So I'd say about 70% of it now is apartments, but when I made that transition, it's a combination of all of them, right? The 1031 exchange, the refinance, the HELOC, a little bit of everything, and then also having capital, right? Don't forget the fact that both me and my wife were either engineers or high-level executives at that time. So, I do believe that I was able to make that transition faster than most because of that, right? But like I said, that you don't have to get to 215 to have financial freedom. I had it well before.
What age did you get it?
I haven't had a job in 6 years, so 29. Yeah, 29.
So
I love it.
Now you was able to retire pretty much and just live your life of financial freedom.
And that was before you had the commercial units, right?
Yeah, and so the one thing that I teach all of my clients, right, is that I keep this toolbox in here because it reminds me of my grandpa in the hardware store, right? That blue collar upbringing.
I thought you was in the garage.
In the house, in my office.
No.
Yeah. So I keep this toolbox here because I teach all my clients that I'm going to teach you all the tools. I'm going to show you what a hammer, a nail, a screwdriver, a wrench is, so that when it's time to get busy, you know how to pull open the drawer and grab the right tool, right? So a part of, like you said, what financial strategies can you use to get into these properties? Every one of the ones that you named, the refinance, the 1031, the HELOC, all of that stuff are all tools that you need to be aware of. And then when you get into a specific deal, you can engineer what is the best situation. How do I use this money, or how do I maintain, as much of my equity as possible, whatever your ultimate goal is for that particular transaction.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And real quick, I want to comment on the fact of the 1031, because I know a lot of people aren't familiar with that. But it's essentially where you can defer the taxes on a property if you buy a similar or like property. So in his case, if you have 10 duplexes, you can sell those duplexes and take that equity, not have to pay taxes on any of that if you take it and put it directly into a similar investment. Because obviously with real estate, you get amazing tax advantages. And, that's why people like Donald Trump don't pay taxes, and that's why you're never going to see his tax returns. But, I don't know. I'm sure there's other things going on. But as far as like the real estate part of it goes, that's right. One of the, the biggest things. So, but like kind of building on that, I do want to kind of talk more about Marlon, because I was going to kind of transition into some of like the tax advantages and some of that kind of stuff. Did you want to? I
was thinking the same thing, because I know you talk. So I looked on your page a little bit and I saw you talk a lot about like different tax advantages that real estate offers. And so, Matt, I really want you to comment on one, because you talked about, so first of all, just put our disclaimer, we're not tax professionals. We don't give any tax or legal advice. So don't come trying to attack us for telling y'all something. We're not liable for that. But saw you talk about how you can utilize your kids in order to like save on taxes. So can you talk a little bit about that? And as you can ask anything afterwards too.
Absolutely. So I do want to have that same disclaimer that you had. Because the tax professional, I'll give you the general idea, because even within my organization, I don't actually handle it, right? So I rely on my team to tell me what's possible. Okay, I get the idea, I get the concept. Yeah, let's do that, and then they carry it out, right? So ultimately, before I answer that though, the thing that I always emphasize is that a lot of times people don't want to hire management. They don't want to build out their team. They're trying to do things themselves, and that's what limits them. That's why they're not able to scale and grow, right? But I always say, if you're focused on working in the business, then who's working on the business, right? And so if you're doing all of the management, if you're fixing the toilets, if you're doing the bookkeeping, if you're paying attention to all of these different things, then who's focused on finding the next property? And a lot of times the reason people aren't doing that is because they say, oh, it costs too much to hire these people. It costs too much. They want to suck up too much of my profits, right? But ultimately, the biggest expense you're going to have is taxes, right? So if you get all the rest of it wrong and you get the taxes right, you can succeed. And so for me, that's why I've invested so much of my time and energy on understanding that. Yeah. And so to kind of walk into that piece of how you can use your children to get the tax advantages. So the federal tax laws are, if you don't make over $12,500 a year, and anything 12.5 and below is non-taxable income. When you get over that threshold, that's when you pay taxes.
Yes.
Right. So essentially, if you have children who aren't working, you can pay them 12.5 out of your business, and that income for them would be non-taxable income. And then through the proper paperwork and strategies, mostly stuff that you talk to your accountant about, which is very simple, you would then be able to use that 12.5 to pay for their expenses.
Right.
Yeah. And that is just, those are like some of the things that you just can't know that. You got to go seek that kind of knowledge out.
That's I mean, some of this stuff that they doing at a higher level, I'm like, oh, man, I could have saved myself so much more money if I come straight to you. But then, I wasn't, at that time, I wasn't in order to sit down with somebody who's done $2 billion worth of transactions, you got to come with it, right? So he's not just saying, hey, I'll take any rookie off the street. But ultimately, I'm always looking to better myself. I still spend heavily on my financial education, so I'm at well over $100,000 after college, just on mastering real estate and continued education.
Yeah. And I want people to put that in perspective too, because remember, you don't have to be like him in terms of, your goals. If, like he said, financial freedom, retirement is just your expenses. It's just your numbers, right? So if you just want to live, bro, you can live a great life, a great life with 10,000 in cash flow per month. Like, you don't need 100,000 in cash flow a month. It's a great goal, but if that's not your goal, then you don't have to take what he's saying and apply it to your situation in terms of what is your actual goal, right? Because for you obviously, not everyone needs $100K of coaching.
Absolutely. Yeah. So like, don't get that twisted, right? That's just because I'm like a thirst for knowledge and I want to go to this next level. And it's always been my passion to teach people.
Yeah.
So, I know that I have to have that higher level of education in order to come back and bring it to the people, right? Mm-hmm. But for most of my clients that I talk to, they're like, look, man, I only need about $6K and then I'm good. Now, if we talking about getting the cars and all the other stuff I want, maybe 10, maybe 20K, but you could easily come up with a strategy to get you 6K, and a lot of times, it doesn't you don't have to just be passive, right? You can do a great deal, get out of your job. Well, you're still gonna need the income in order to scale, but there's so many different paths through real estate that it's all about sitting down and coming up with that strategy that works for you. Because like in my case, since my wife still had an income, it could make it easier for me to say, all right, I'm done with work and we can still do deals because my wife has a job that's bringing in that can get us qualified for loans.
I think at the end of the day, it's really just figuring out what works for you. And I think what's really beneficial, though, is like when you have somebody that you can look up to that has done way exceedingly past anything that you're trying to do, your goal seems like it's smaller in a sense. So it's more. So I say smaller to say that it's more obtainable. Like, oh, if you can do $1 million worth of real estate, why can't I just do 100,000 or 200,000? Like, it should be able to make your goal seem more like it's not as significant. Like, okay, like if my goal is 6,000, but I see you doing 100,000, 6,000, like, bro, okay, that's easily obtainable now. So I think it should make your goals it should make your goals seem more feasible and more realistic. And so I think that's another good thing about surrounding yourself with people that are like at a higher level than you are, because that way you can see the pretty much like the mountaintop, and you see that you're just like on a little hill, and like, oh, this is nothing then. So if I want to scale up even past my initial number, I can do that as well. But my number, I'm trying. If my goal is just that small number, I see that as easily obtainable.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that's what all the books and the coaching are gonna do. They're gonna get you there faster. All right. I don't doubt that everybody can figure this stuff out on their own, but you're gonna bump your head. You're gonna overpay in taxes. You may buy a property without equity. Like, you'll do a few things out of sequence, and you're hoping that those things don't deter you or make you discouraged. Right. So I always try to find somebody who's done what I want, where they can, like you said, if you've done $1 million, then you can make this 100,000 happen easy. And a lot of times that's how the conversation goes. Like, oh yeah, we can do that, no problem. Okay, show me. Rather spend a year on YouTube trying to figure it out.
Yeah. And that's really the reality of it. So hope people take that and apply it to their situation, and that, that little comment, that conversation. Cool. So I didn't really have any more questions. I think we can kind of transition into the Fast Five, where this is kind of like where we ask, or where we ask you 5 questions and you answer them in 60 seconds or less.
Okay. And done that one before. Let's go.
Yeah. Cool. So I'm gonna get the first one, Marlon get the second, and then we'll go from there. Yep. Yeah. Cool. So first question: what does success mean to you?
The freedom to do what I want, when I want, as long as I want.
Easy money. All right, number 2. What's your favorite money or business book?
Favorite money book, Cash Flow Quadrant.
Ooh, there we go.
Right.
That's mine too.
These his ears right there.
Yes, sir. Would you rather have $1,000 a week for life or $1 million today, and why?
I'm gonna take the 1,000 a week, because I already know, compound interest, all of that stuff over time. But also, I'm all about financial location and time freedom, and so I see that $1,000 coming in forever. I already know that, that's gonna far exceed just this one-time million. I'm gonna have to pay taxes on that anyway.
Nah. This is we ain't talking taxes.
This is after tax, either one. $1,000 a week after tax or $1 million after tax.
I take the income. I can go to the bank and leverage other people's money.
Gotcha. All right, number 4. If you could go back and change anything about your journey, what would it be?
I would have started soon.
Classic.
I would have did that at 18.
What age did you start?
2007, whatever age I was then. Born in 1985.
Gotcha.
22, I think.
He was 22.
23, something like that.
You started the same age as us.
Yes, we started 21, 22.
Yeah. I would have started at 18, man. I avoided real estate because of that childhood experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's funny. We got a lot of the similar answers. Right. So last question then, where can people find out more about you?
The best place to go is Instagram. My Instagram handle is Ed Davis the Mogul. Mogul is spelled Mogoal. And that's the best place.
Cool. Well, man, this was a dope episode, man. I'm glad you was able to come on here. I could really, see this being a great episode for a lot of people. They can get a lot of value from, because we talked about so many different things in terms of mindset and also real estate, and those how you can apply it to your life. So I appreciate you taking the time to chop it up with us and give value to our audience.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's it for this episode of the Money Monopolizers podcast. New episodes will be released every Thursday and will be available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Just search Money Monopolizers wherever you listen to podcasts. We hope you learned something of value today. If you did, we'd appreciate it if you rated us 5 stars, not 4, and left us a review on Apple Podcasts. You can also find out more info about us on Twitter at The Monopolizers or on Instagram at Money Monopolizers. We post informative content on there that'll keep you engaged and change your life. So check that out and share those posts. But until then, we out of here.
You've been listening to the Money Monopolizers podcast, helping you take control of your financial destiny. To learn more about how you can be in control of your money, visit moneymonopolizers.com. We'll catch you next time when Alex and Marlon share more personal finance and wealth creation tips with you. Now it's time to take action.